Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today. This is your primetime destination. Newsmakers, talking points. Our big talking point tonight. Sanchar Saathi, the new app of the government. Is it really going to promote cyber security as it claims, or as the opposition argues, it is another snooping tool for the government? Surveillance fear, real or imagined? That's going to be our top talking point. Also tonight, Sunita Narayan, the country's leading environmentalist, joins us on our continuing focus on the air emergency across the country. But let's turn to the story that's breaking this evening. After a day of confrontation yesterday, today the Parliament logjam appears set to end in the winter session. Sources telling India Today that the government and the opposition have now reached a final agreement by which discussion will take place next week in the Lok Sabha on Vande Mataram on Monday and then on electoral reforms on Tuesday. The Rajya Sabha is also expected to debate both issues next week. Joining me now, Aishwarya Paliwal joins me with the very latest. Aishwarya, it seems that unlike in the previous session where there was a logjam almost right through, this time both sides have met each other halfway. We will have electoral reforms being discussed and we will have Vande Mataram, which the government wants to discuss.
Right, Rajdeep. We have seen how the government since day one was saying that whatever the opposition has been asking for, it has not been rejected completely. In fact, the Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju time and again, at least over the course of the last 72 hours, at different points said that you just need to give us time. And also, your demand that only SIR should be discussed is something that the government at the moment is not looking at. And that's the reason why we are seeing the electoral reforms, the larger thing. That's what the government wants a discussion on. 10 hours in Lok Sabha have now been given. Monday, very, very crucial because we understand there is a possibility that the Prime Minister could be speaking on Monday, and then we will see how the electoral reform debate will take place on Tuesday in the Rajya Sabha. We will have a schedule maybe in the next 2 days on when the discussion will take place on both these sides. The opposition was very, very clear. If you do not want to discuss SIR, discuss electoral rules, the Congress, the TMC, the Samajwadi Party, all of them are saying that we want to bring forth some of the points on the floor of the Parliament. So this is an opportunity for the opposition to speak what they wanted to speak with regards to SIR.
Aishwarya Paliwal bringing us that piece of news. Appreciate you joining us now. Typically, there are other issues which, of course, are troubling Parliament and indeed many citizens. The latest flashpoint between the government and the opposition is over an app, Sanchar Saathi, an app which the government order yesterday said would have to be preloaded on every mobile phone now acquired in India. The government says this was critical to ensure complete cyber security. The opposition hit back saying that this app preloaded would lead to snooping and was another example of what they call Pegasus 2.0. Today, the Telecom Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia clarified that this app can be disabled and deleted by a user and therefore is not mandatory in that sense. Either way, it has sparked off a fierce debate. Are apps that the government insists must be used also an opportunity for the government to get personal data and violate the right to privacy? That's going to be the crucial debate we'll have today. But first, take a look at the story.
Get ready. Your smartphone is about to get a new companion, the Sanchar Sathi app. The Indian government has directed all phone makers in India to pre-install this app on every new device sold. Companies are also urged to push the app to older phones through software updates. As per the government's directive, phone companies must ensure the app is pre-installed, easily visible and accessible from the very first moment you turn on your device. The mobile manufacturers must ensure the app's functionalities are not disabled or restricted. And there's a tight deadline. 90 days for installation with a compliance report due in 120 days from giants like Apple, Samsung and Vivo. Reuters, citing sources in Apple, said that Apple will not bow to the diktat and will not preload its phones with the app. Apple is said to be planning to convey its concerns directly to New Delhi. The government says that this is about protecting users from telecom fraud, duplicate IMEIs, and cyber threats. According to the government, the Sanchar Sathi app allows users to block lost or stolen phones, verify if a device is genuine, and also see all mobile numbers linked to their ID. But there's a catch. The app requires access to camera, call logs, phone status, SMS, and notifications, sparking privacy concerns. Congress and allies slammed the move, calling it a potential snooping tool and warning it could compromise citizens' privacy.
It's a very fine line between fraud is easy to report and we can see everything that every citizen of India is doing on their phone. So that's not how it should work. There should be an effective system to report fraud, and we've discussed this at great lengths on cyber security and this and that, and definitely there's a need for cyber security, but that doesn't mean that it gives you an excuse to go into every citizen's telephone.
The government clarified that the app can be uninstalled. Communications Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia assured users there's no compulsion to keep it.
कोई मैंडेटरी नहीं है. आप अगर रजिस्टर नहीं करना चाहते हो, मतलब कि उदाहरण के तौर पे इस ऐप का उपयोग नहीं करना चाहते हो, तो रजिस्टर मत करो, वो डोरमेंट रहेगा. डिलीट करना है तो डिलीट कर लो. पर क्या हो, एक मिनट, पर हर व्यक्ति को देश में नहीं मालूम कि मुझे फ्रॉड से प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए, मुझे चोरी से प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए ये ऐप है. तो हर व्यक्ति तक ये ऐप पहुंचाना हमारी जिम्मेदारी है.
So the question remains, is Sanchar Sathi a smart security buddy or a digital watchdog? Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, joining me now, before that, are the big questions I want to pose. The Sanchar Sathi diktat of the government. Is it a violation of privacy or not? Is this app going to be a cyber shield against cyber crimes as the government claims? Or will it become a snooping tool? Is this surveillance fear real or imagined? Questions that we'll raise about your and my right to privacy. My first guest is Shashi Shekhar Vempati. He's been former CEO at Prasar Bharati. He's now co-founder of Deep Tech for Bharat. Does a lot of work on AI. Appreciate your joining us, Shashi Shekhar. Tell me, Shashi, at the moment there are two big questions. Do you accept or do you believe, as is being suggested, that this Sanchar Sathi app is essentially going to be used to snoop on people as the opposition claims? Or do you believe that's an exaggerated fear, a misplaced fear, that this app will not be used for snooping but for greater cyber security?
Yeah, I think that's clearly unfounded and exaggerated concerns. If you look at the massive amount of fraud that's happening, digital fraud, using mobile phones, WhatsApp, profiles to trap people, do so-called, digital arrest and so on. I think the situation called for an intervention, and I think the government has taken a meaningful step in popularizing this app. If you look at the Sanchar Sathi website, I think they have made public the statistics so far, staggering numbers in terms of, the number of phones fraudulently, the SIM cards that have been blocked, the number of stolen phones that have been found. So in that sense, I think there is a public interest app, and I think the government encouraging the phone manufacturers to pre-install it, I think is a very positive move. And I think the minister has also made it clear that, you can take it out if you don't want it.
With due regard, Mr. Vempati, when I go through the government order that was put out yesterday, it made it very clear that every mobile phone manufacturer would have to preload this app. So the concern is, the moment you preload the app, could the government have access to your data? Will it lead to mass surveillance? Should not the user have the right to install or uninstall an app? Why should the government decide which app is to be used?
Yeah, I think that's clearly an overblown concern, because the permissions of the app definitely don't entail any of those kinds of surveillance access that people are imagining it. The other thing that many of us don't pay attention to is every commercial phone that we buy, be it from Apple, Google, or any of the whole host of Chinese manufacturers. They all come with pre-installed phones, apps with all sorts of pre-installed apps, and some of those apps can't even be removed. So in that sense, I think while we very unwittingly have adopted all of those apps, I think when the government has taken a progressive step to create awareness about cybersecurity and cyber fraud, especially because mobile phones today in India are being used heavily for payments through UPI, for Aadhaar verification and so on. I think it's all the more important to create this awareness. And if someone doesn't want the app, they can take it off their phones. But by making it pre-installed, you're lowering the barrier to adoption, right? Otherwise, most of the time, we're not even aware of what avenues are there for grievance redressal or for filing cyber complaints and so on. I think this kind of lowers that barrier, makes it easily accessible to a lot of people.
So are you saying that it cannot normalize surveillance in the name of cyber security, that it will not become a government tracker of your smartphones, it cannot be used to implant files on your device, and the concern that the government could access personal data on your device? Are you telling me all these concerns are misplaced, exaggerated?
Absolutely. And I think, as far as any legitimate law enforcement access is concerned, I think the government, I'm sure, has enough tools to do that where, the law permits it. I don't think this is that avenue for that. I think this needs to be looked at from the point of view of creating awareness. Just look at the numbers, right? I was looking at some very staggering numbers recently shared on just in Bangalore City, which is perhaps the most tech-savvy city. Hundreds of crores of rupees lost to digital fraud, which speaks very poorly of the average cyber awareness. Even within the class of people who are supposed to be tech savvy, where you probably have the highest penetration of digital services, right? So it's a serious problem. I think we should give it the merit, the attention it merits, rather than hyping up this whole concern around surveillance. Which clearly is over.
One final question, Shashi Shekhar. Shouldn't the government have publicized this initiative first before you put out directives directly to phone manufacturers? It leads to confusions. Many of the concerns could have been avoided if the government was more transparent.
Sure. In fact, if you look at the Prime Minister in his Mann Ki Baat has created awareness on digital arrest more than once. So in that sense, I think clearly there is a need to do more and more of this. The PM has already done it from his end in Mann Ki Baat. Perhaps the telecom ministry has to create more awareness, maybe through mass media, through print and so on. As far as diktat is concerned, I'm not aware if a hard diktat was issued. I understand it's more of an advisory. But nevertheless, I think that nothing in India can ever be less of communication. I think we need to do more of communication, especially on issues of this nature, just because of the fact that even the most digital savvy individuals can very easily fall prey to these sorts of cyber frauds.
Okay, let me widen this debate at this moment. Joining me now, Brijesh Singh, Principal Secretary, Government of Maharashtra, someone who's been an advocate for cyber security. Apar Gupta, lawyer and founder, Internet Freedom. NS Napinai, advocate at the Supreme Court. I appreciate all three of you joining us. You've just heard Apar Gupta, what Shashi Shekhar Vempati has to say. He said the fears are exaggerated. Now, you've been among those who've raised this issue of privacy. Can you tell me whether you believe the fact that the minister is also now saying that the app can be uninstalled? He's even seemingly suggesting it's not mandatory. How do you respond to that? Do you believe this is backtracking, or do you believe that the fears were exaggerated in the first instance?
Thank you so much, Rajdeep, for having me on your show and this debate. I think all of us will benefit from a higher level of clarity if the government itself discloses the full text of the direction, which is now being carried by several people on Twitter. So, unfortunately, even till now, the Department of Telecommunications has not officially released the full text of the directions which have been issued to phone manufacturers under the cybersecurity telecom rules of 2024. This is
Right.
dated, as per my information, November 21st, 2025. So it's been some days since this direction has been issued. Now, secondly, I think so, given this lack of transparency, this secrecy which is there, what we are going by off the record comments and ministerial statements. But what will actually have force and will require compliance will be the text of this direction. And here it becomes important also to go back to the Reuters report, which is also quoting and has sources from the Department of Telecom. Its explainer today actually says that not only will this be rolled out for devices which are manufactured, and I'm quoting now from their article, an industry source with direct knowledge of the situation said software updates would eventually roll out to the app to existing phone users, meaning it could reach more than 735 million people. And it also says that the manufacturers must ensure that users cannot disable or restrict the app's features. Now, this is why I think so. There needs to be transparency. There needs to be a public disclosure of the full text of this notification. Secondly, when we come to the actual substance of these fears, let's take a step back. This is the government requiring your smartphone to have an app pre-installed by the use of a regulatory power. How it has exercised this regulatory power is admittedly not there in the public domain. Now, what is the issue is that the app may be updated over a period of time. Its functionality may be changed over a period of time. We do not know under which law is it clearly doing it, what are the features of the application, and it is being a direct communication between the government and a device manufacturer or a large Silicon Valley corporation. This is why people are agitated. This is why there is a legitimate question which is being posed. Is my privacy being compromised? Even if the app may not gather my photos, my videos, and my text today and scan my smartphone today, will there be any law preventing that it cannot do so in future?
Okay, let me bring in Brajesh Singh, because Brajesh, I have what appears to be the text of the order. Section 7 seems to make it very clear that this is a directive, which effectively means that you will have to preload this app. There is some confusion over whether you can uninstall it. The minister says you can uninstall it. But either way, the lack of clarity means that there is a sense that people have of a fear, or those at least privacy advocates, that it can violate privacy. Do you believe those are fears that should have been addressed more conclusively before a directive is issued?
Rajdeep, imagined malice is a bad faith argument. So if you imagine malice, you should give proof for that. And in fact, one should be thankful to the government that it is addressing a problem head on. And for concerns, let me say that government itself is also bound by the Personal Data Protection Act, which requires data minimization and justification for what you are collecting data for, and so on and so forth. Now, if you look at the app functionalities, first of all, it's not compulsory for you to use. It would come pre-installed on your phone, and it's going to do various things. It's going to allow you to block lost of stolen mobile. It's going to allow how many other SIM connections are there on your name. It's going to allow you to verify, device authenticity, and it's going to allow you to report fraud in real time. Today, the problem is that you are not able to report fraud in real time, and that's why you have all these digital arrests to other scams. And there are, crores and 1,000 crores of rupees are lost from innocent citizens. So I feel that it's a welcome step. It's like an antivirus, right? If you don't want to use it, you can simply delete the app or not activate it. If you don't activate it, it's not going to be activated. Secondly, it has very limited functionalities. In fact, after I got a call for this debate, I checked the permissions of the app. It's very limited functionalities and taking very limited information. Secondly, in a democracy, a government functions on trust. And if there is a requirement for any information, there is a procedure mandated by law where there is proportionality, necessity, and transparency. And there's a due process of law.
But with due regard, sir, with due regard, on your last point of trust, you see, as we've seen in the past, there is a fear that government does play the role of big brother. There was snooping during Pegasus. The government may have denied it, but there was enough evidence and more to suggest it had happened. So trust has to be on both sides, right? Government has to earn the trust of citizens. If there are previous, and across the world, this is not just an Indian problem, but it's magnified in India because there is a lack of transparency. That's why when directives like this are issued, there should be greater clarity, Brajesh ji.
Rajdeep, in fact, I handle the Department of Information and Public Relations, and last 1 month I have had many visits from Telecom Department who has been wanting to promote Sanchar Saathi and, tell people about its functionality. So I've had people visiting from that department asking this information to be given in local language to people of Maharashtra. So there have been efforts from the government. I agree that there can be more transparency, there can be more information which can be given, but there have been very clear efforts from the telecom department to give information to people. Rajdeep.
You know, NS Napina, you're an advocate, Supreme Court. An interesting argument is made that when we install foreign apps, whether they are Chinese, whether they are US apps, there is no outrage. But the moment an Indian government app is preloaded on your mobile phone, there is a sense that something could go dreadfully wrong. Are we misjudging, mistrusting the government way too much? Why not? There are those who are using the Sanchar Sathi app who have said it's very useful in terms of detecting potential cyber fraud or indeed recovering your phones.
Rajdeep, it's very interesting to listen to all the hyper simplistic arguments that are being put forth. First and foremost, when we are talking about apps from corporate entities, that is clearly on a different footing from a government app. You can move codes for antitrust, you can delete those apps, you can ask for remedies in terms of corporate surveillance, etc. But what we are talking about here is not about statutory rights. We are talking about fundamental rights. And that is something that a government cannot violate, period. The government is not on par with the corporate entities. They stand on a different footing, including with respect to the responsibility to the citizens of India. And that is that they will not violate our fundamental rights.
No, but is there a possibility, therefore, when a corporate preloads an app, you're saying the right to privacy is not violated, but when the government does so, it is a fundamental violation of your right to privacy?
No, I'm misreading it. What I said is there may be corporate surveillance, but we're not really, you can't equate corporate surveillance with government surveillance. And let me complete what the point I was trying to make, Rajdeep, is this. Don't equate the sensibility or the capability of Sanchar Saathi with forcing it down our throat. The question here is not about what Sanchar Saathi can or cannot do. The question is about whether it can be pre-installed, and that too based on a mandatory direction from the government saying it must be done. There is no logic to it. There is no legal basis to it, and it cannot be constitutionally sustained. That's the point I'm making. And I don't think we should digress from this criticality, given all the inputs that I have heard right now on your show. It's really strange that somebody would say, oh, you have the right to uninstall it. But why should I be forced to have it installed in the first instance? And we are all talking about a pre-installation in a new mobile phone. Let's also take the second instance, which is that you are expected that a software update will also push it onto your phone. So effectively what the directive says is, I must accept a software update or run the risk of breaches or vulnerabilities on my phone, and I first accept the app and then I'm entitled to uninstall it. Why would I be forced to do that? It is my right of choice that I'm talking about, and I as a citizen have the right to decide what I want on my private device or not. That
I
cannot
take your
be
point, ma'am.
violated. I think that's the fundamental
Okay,
that needs to be
you made your point. Do you believe, Brajesh Singh, that there is an argument of an individual's right to privacy here is being violated? The fundamental argument is coming, a right to privacy which has been acknowledged now by the Supreme Court, no less, could be violated, potentially could be violated. We are looking at a worst case scenario. Yes, there are benefits of the app, obviously, but there are fears as well.
Rajiv ji, I feel that first of all, as I said, imagined malice is a bad faith argument. So you need to prove that there is a possibility for this. We cannot just say. So let us technically come in and see. Let's say you can sandbox the app, find out what data it is sending or not. Apart from that, this is like an anti-vaccination argument. But when there are dire situations, you need to come up with some, solutions like this. For example, there's mass vaccination, and same kind of arguments were put forth. Today, cybercrime has become thrice the Indian GDP. It's $10.7 trillion, which is thrice the Indian GDP across the world. And at this time, dire measures are needed, and I think this is a welcome step. Rajdeep.
Apar Gupta, when you look at the numbers that the government is throwing up, the government says that already this app has had a huge difference in enabling the government in its war to ensure against cyber crime. They've thrown up numbers saying that since the app was launched in January 2025, it has recovered more than 700,000 lost phones. More than over 20 crore people have used the portal. About 1.4 crore people have downloaded the app. How do you respond to those who are saying that the app so far has shown that has shown results according to the government?
So the first thing we should recognize is that those numbers are not only due to the app, but also due to the website. Sanchar Saathi exists primarily as a website, so it does not even need to be installed on your smartphone for you to report the loss of a mobile or to just avail the other features which are present within it. As an app also, if these numbers exist, then it points as to a high level of adoption and confidence amongst Indians, thereby not requiring this level of coercion. Now, the stated aim, which is of curbing and improving telecom security, according to me, is on its face a legitimate state aim. Nobody is quarreling against. It's the coercion which is being placed on people and the installation of this application, which is being mandatorily enforced on our private smartphone devices.
No, so
This is
you're not
disproportionate.
accepting what Jyotiraditya Scindia said. I quote him again. If you don't want Sanchar Saathi, you can delete it. It is optional. It is our duty to introduce this app to everyone. Keeping it in their devices or not is up to the user.
Mr. Scindia or any other public officials' public statements need to match the legal text of an order which has not yet been transparently made available. This is not about trusting the government. We can trust the government once we have the black ink which is directing this installation to telecom manufacturers to be made public. Why is this not being disclosed to us clearly, Rajdeep? Even the piece of paper which is in front of you and you read from, you sourced that on the basis of somebody circulating it. It's not the government's proactive disclosure. So how is Mr. Scindia's statement matching this direction?
There is obviously therefore some concerns, but in conclusion, NS Naminai, do you believe therefore that if this app is installed, you are convinced that the act itself of preloading the app by the government is unconstitutional? Am I correct? And a violation of the right to privacy, irrespective of its benefits?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I think the government should look at a more benevolent or an easier way of ensuring that there is awareness about this facility, which users can avail of if they believe that they need it. To install something without clarity in terms of the kind of data that's being collected, the kind of data that I am being asked to be made to compromise on, considering that the state is also part of the Personal Data Protection Act and owes responsibilities to us, and most importantly, the proportionality of it. I fully understand and I'm conversant with the volume of time that is there. And I'm sorry to say I don't agree with Brajeshji on what he talks about malice and the owners, etc. Because the issue again is not about distrusting the government. The issue is about the very act of making something mandatory, on a platform which is not that of the government, but that of every individual. It's their private property which you're trying to intrude upon. Whatever may be your good intention is inappropriate. Find alternatives which are not intrusive and which are proportionate, and they will be most welcome. You are responsible for protecting us against scams, etc. And we are sure you'll find better alternatives. But please do try, and let us not get carried away and forget the difference between protection and protectionism. And this is clearly protection.
That's an interesting argument. The difference between protection and protectionism. Is the state playing big brother once again, or are we unfairly questioning the motives of the state? Let's leave it there. I appreciate my guest joining us on a major issue of public concern, and I want to turn from there to another issue of public concern, which is the capital's pollution woes, and indeed pollution woes across the country this winter that in several parts show no signs of easing. A latest analysis has shown that the national capital's toxic air is actually of its own making and cannot be attributed, as it often is, to stubble burning. A new analysis by India's leading environmental NGO, the Centre for Science and Environment, has revealed that the biggest contributions to Delhi's air pollution are vehicular emissions, not stubble fires this year. The think tank's report highlights that despite farm fires being at a multi-year low, the capital's air still remains in the very poor or even severe category. The level of fine pollutants has shown no improvement since 2022, indicating that pollution control measures being implemented by government agencies are not effective on the ground. Vehicular emissions in particular are the ones that are spiking, and this spike is what is causing what is being described as a toxic cocktail. What does this really mean? Are we unfairly targeting the farmers for stubble burning? Is the real crisis vehicular emissions when it comes to pollution? Sunita Narayan, Director CSE, which has authored that report, joins me. Sunita, it's been widely believed even in the past that vehicular emissions account for about 40% of pollution. Are you saying that could be an even higher number? And stubble burning was seen to account for about 17%. Is that even less if I were to put it in percentage terms?
So Rajdeep, that's not the percentage. The fact is stubble burning was never on an average 17%.
In this season.
Yeah, in this season, it tips us over. And broadly, what we have understood is there are certain days of winter when in the past, when the stubble burning could have contributed up to 25 to 30%, and on an average, as you said, it could be up to 17% in this 1 month of stubble burning period. What we have found this year, and that should both worry us, but also it gives us a sense of there is one less thing to worry about, which is the farm fire, which we were not being able to combat, is that this year, the pollution from farm fires, partly also because, Rajdeep, as you know, Punjab has been under flood. There has been huge damage to the crop. And as a result of it, the farm fire contribution to Delhi, according to government's own data, we have only analyzed the data from the Ministry of Earth Sciences. So this is not our data. Their own data shows that on an average, it has been less than 5%. And only on 2 days did it go up to about 15%. The rest, but the worry part of it is that pollution remained very high, and you have done shows on it. We have suffered it. We cannot breathe in Delhi today, and the entire period, pollution has remained high. Now, this tells us that winter is bad, weather turns adverse, we know. The sources of pollution remain the same, and between vehicles, between industrial pollution, between waste burning, these are local sources, and we need to deal with them fast, at an emergency level and at scale. The problem today is the lack of scale. It is not about not knowing the source. It is about the scale of action that is needed.
So let's focus on that on one of the critical areas that your report points out,
Yeah.
vehicular pollution, which suggests that therefore the air quality remains bad right round the year, certainly higher than it acceptable because of vehicular pollution along with dust. How do you tackle that on scale?
So what our report also shows us that there is a direct correlation between congestion, between pollution, between vehicular movement, and particularly NO2 levels, nitrogen dioxide levels, which are also very elevated. We also find that carbon monoxide levels are very high. Now, this means that we need to deal with vehicular pollution and we need to make different categories of it. So how do vehicles pollute? Vehicles pollute by the by the kilometers they travel and by the emission standards that are there. Now, if you look at private cars, we are adding 500 new cars into Delhi a day. Now, this is data for Delhi registration only. If you take all of NCR, it would be much higher. We're adding 1,500 new two-wheelers a day. Now, it's not possible to say people should get off their cars, get off their two-wheelers when we don't have adequate public transport. So you need to upscale public transport at a scale that we have never seen. But we need clean public transport. If you remember, Rajdeep, you were very much doing shows at that time when we moved towards CNG in Delhi. We moved all buses, all diesel buses in 1 year to compressed natural gas. We moved all auto rickshaws to compressed natural gas. The scale of it, 100,000 vehicles moved to CNG. That's the scaling we need. Now, if we are talking about public transport, we need to be able to scale it at that level. Today, we are adding a few electric buses, which is great, but ridership in buses is going down. Because there is so much congestion on the road that buses are stuck in traffic, they become unreliable, they have breakdowns, and as a result of it, ridership is down. So that's one big part of the agenda. And every time it gets put off saying, oh, this is a long-term agenda. But it's time we started a real solid upgradation of public transport. But over and above that, we need two other parts of that agenda. We need trucks, which are really old trucks. We need to make sure that we can move them to better quality trucks today, because BS6 trucks today are much lower in terms of emissions. But you cannot do this one or two. You need a scheme like CNG when you replaced all auto rickshaws. You need to incentivize this scrappage program. Then you need your autos, your taxis, which travel the maximum kilometers, 200 kilometers a day, to completely electrify. But again, you need to do that super fast, not one here, one there. You need to do it. And with this, you need to make sure you have car restraint measures, which is height parking. But you can't do that till you provide people an alternative. You have to get us to move people and not vehicles. It's an agenda that will not go away. And be very clear, Rajdeep, we're all stuck in traffic. And now we're not just stuck in traffic, we're also breathing foul air. And no amount of air purifiers is going to make us healthy.
Those are very strong words. What we need, therefore, is an urgent and scaled up plan to control vehicular pollution in particular at the very earliest. Does anyone have the political will to do that is a big question, or the appetite to do that. Parliament discusses a range of other issues. Why can't they devote 10 hours to air pollution as well? If you can discuss Vande Mataram on its 150th anniversary, why not, for God's sake, discuss something for today, which is air pollution, and find solutions and come with a consensus and a plan of action. Not just discuss it, but a plan of action. And implement that plan. I take your point. Implement that plan of action. Sunita Narayan, for sharing details of that report. Appreciate you joining me here in our continuing focus on the air emergency. Let's turn to tonight's ground report, which comes from Jammu and Kashmir. More than 35 years after the abduction of then Home Minister Mufti Saeed's daughter, Rubaiya Sayeed, the CBI arrested one of the alleged absconders, Shafat Ahmad Shanglu. But a day later, the Tada court rejected the plea for his judicial remand, essentially paving way for his release. Was this a botched up investigation then by the CBI? Take a look at tonight's ground report.
Over 35 years after Rubaiya Sayeed's kidnap, the CBI has announced the arrest of Shafat Ahmed Shanglu. In a press release on Monday, the central agency claimed that it had taken Shanglu into custody in the case. The CBI called Shanglu an absconder and added that there was a reward of 10 lakh rupees against him. It claimed that Shanglu had conspired with JKLF founder Yasin Malik to abduct Rubaiya Sayeed, the daughter of then Home Minister Mufti Mohammad Sayeed. On Tuesday, the CBI produced Shanglu in a court in Jammu, which released him, rejecting that agency's demand for custody. Shanglu's lawyer claims that the suspect was already cleared with investigators and he was never absconding.
चार्जशीट इस केस में दायर हुई है, उसमें इनका नाम है?
नाम तो है, लेकिन वो मतलब नाम से क्या होता है कि उसका नाम तो था उसमें, चार्जशीट में ओबियसली उसका नाम था, लेकिन आयोग ने उसका बेनिफिट दिया था कि उनके खिलाफ कोई शहादत मौसूल नहीं हुई थी ड्यूरिंग इन्वेस्टिगेशन ऑफ द केस. दैट इज द रीजन ही हैज बीन सेट फ्री. सीबीआई का ये दावा था कि द पर्सन हु हैज बीन सेट फ्री बाय दिस ऑनरेबल कोर्ट कि ये एब्सकॉन्ड कर रहा था कोई 30-35 साल से, लेकिन ऐसा कुछ नहीं था.
Coming out of the courtroom, Shanglu reiterated that he was not on the run.
मुझे अरेस्ट नहीं किया, मैं खुद गया उनके पास. कहाँ पर? श्रीनगर में. निशा ने बुलाया मुझे निशा थाने से फोन आया और मैं गया और उन्होंने कहा कोई केस है, मैं उनके साथ कोऑपरेट किया. सीबीआई का दावा है 35 साल से एब्सकॉन्डिंग. नहीं, मैं कहाँ पर. आई वाज वेरी मच हियर. यासिन मलिक को जानते हैं आप? मैं नहीं जानता हूँ. 1989 में जब किडनैपिंग हुई थी तब आप क्या करते थे? तब मैं बिजनेस करता था. मेरा फुटवेयर का बिजनेस था, मेरा कारपेट का बिजनेस था.
Shanglu was at the passport office in Srinagar for passport renewal on Monday when he got a call from the police station in Nishat. The police handed him over to the CBI team when he reached there.
It's been no less than an emotional roller coaster for the Shanglu family. Last 24 hours, things have changed quite, in fact, at a drastic rate. In fact, I am right now outside one of his shops. This is a shop that is owned by Shafat Ahmed Shanglu. Though the shop remains shut, in fact has been shut for quite some time now, since he's into a travel business and frequently travels to Dubai, if family is to be believed. He was picked up by the CBI from a police station Nishat.
Rubaiya Sayeed's daughter of Mufti Sayeed was kidnapped in 1989. The VP Singh government had released 5 terrorists from jail to secure Rubaiya's release. JKLF chief Yasin Malik, who was behind the abduction, is currently in jail. The arrest and immediate release of Shafat Ahmed Shanglu is an embarrassment for the CBI, which seems to have overlooked the earlier clean chit given to the Kashmiri businessman. With Sunilji Bhatt and Mir Fareed, Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's turn to tonight's Get Real India story. He stood up for women being harassed, but ended up paying for it with his life. A 26-year-old national para-powerlifting champion, Rohit Dhankar, was beaten to death at a wedding in Haryana's Rohtak district for objecting to misbehavior with women guests. A promising athlete, a local coach, and the sole breadwinner of his family, Rohit's killing has sparked serious questions on mob violence and law and order in Haryana. This is the story of courage, brutality, and a demand for justice. Take a look.
A 26-year-old life full of promise, medals, and dreams, cut short in a burst of violence. A champion who lifted weights for a living, a para-athlete, raised his voice and support for women being harassed and paid with his life. Rohit Dhankar, a national-level para-powerlifter, a multiple-time champion, is dead. brutally beaten in Haryana's Rohtak district for standing up against harassment at a wedding. It happened at a family wedding in Rewari Khera village. Rohit was leaving the venue with his friends when a group of men allegedly drunk misbehaved with women guests. Rohit objected. Words were exchanged. What followed was a savage attack.
वहाँ पे जो लड़कियां थी, जो बराती आए थे, जो लड़कियां थी, उनसे गाली गलौज दे के बदतमीजी से बैड कमेंट करना ऐसी कुछ हरकत कर रहे थे। करीबन 20 से 22 लड़के थे, जिनमें 15-16 लड़कियां गया था मैं हॉकी, लोहे की राड, बिट्टे वगैरह थे।
Rohit collapsed on the spot. With multiple fractures and head injuries, he was rushed from one hospital to another. But the injuries were too severe. Late Saturday night, the young athlete lost the fight for his life.
अकेला लड़का था, बहन है, एक है, शादी हो रही है, क्योंकि लड़का एक प्लेयर का खर्चा इसका कम से कम 40 से 45
चलाई मशीन चला के गुजारा करे आरती हुआ।
A life built on discipline, strength and dignity ended by mob brutality.
इसमें जो भी फैक्ट्स हमारे पास हैं उनके आधार पे हम जो आरोपी हैं उनको पकड़ने के प्रयास किए जा रहे हैं। शीघ्र ही आरोपियों को पकड़ने में सफलता हासिल की जाएगी। आरोपी मोस्टली भिवानी जिला के ही रहने वाले हैं, जिनमें से कुछ आरोपी तिगड़ाना के और कुछ आसपास के एरिया के रहने वाले हैं।
The murder of Rohit Dhankar is no longer just a crime story. It is a question of law and order in Haryana. If a national champion is not safe for standing up for women, what protection does the common citizen have? When mob rule replaces the rule of law, fear wins and justice becomes fragile. Bureau Report, India Today.
Get Real India, stories that you don't see on prime time across news channels. I want to leave you though with our good news today story of the day, where a powerful message from Madhya Pradesh. In Ujjain, a mass wedding of 22 couples took center stage. But also taking center stage was a VVIP's son, Abhimanyu Yadav, the younger son of Chief Minister Mohan Yadav. With spiritual leaders and dignitaries in attendance, the event stood out as a striking counter to India's at times rather extravagant wedding culture. I leave you with tonight's Good News Today story. You stay well, stay safe. Good night, Shubhratri. Jai Hind. Namaskar.
This mass wedding is no ordinary one. Among the 22 grooms is Dr. Abhimanyu Yadav, younger son of Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Mohan Yadav. Abhimanyu married Dr. Ishita Patel on Sunday on the banks of Shipra River in Ujjain. The two took their vows alongside 21 other couples.
ऐसे स्थानों पर भी सबके साथ सबका विकास की अगर बात करते हैं तो उसको करके भी दिखाना रहता है। मुझे इस बात का संतोष है कि आज कई परिवारों के साथ ये शुभ प्रसंग है, सभी वर्गों के साथ जो एक हम सब मिलकर के आज के दौर में अगर हम इन सारी बातों को बढ़ावा देंगे तो अच्छा लगेगा।
Other grooms and brides appreciated the Chief Minister's gesture.
शादी की तो सबसे बड़ी स्वाभाविक की बात यह है कि डॉक्टर मोहन यादव जी के लड़के के साथ मेरा भी सामूहिक विवाह में सिलेक्शन हो गया। मतलब एक निवेदन करने पे मुझको डॉक्टर मोहन यादव जी ने हाँ बोल दिया। तो मुझे एक ही जगह पे दोनों की शादियां हो रही है, उनके बेटे की भी आप? हाँ, साथ में हो रही है हमारे, अलग से कुछ भी ये नहीं है, हमारे साथ में हो रही है सब।
The mass wedding was attended by many prominent people, including spiritual leaders Ramdev and Bageshwar Baba. At a time when millions are spent on wedding bashes, the Ujjain wedding ceremony sets an example of simplicity. With Ravishpal Singh, Bureau Report, India Today.